Harmony Hall, bookkeepers. What law firm is going to want to hire me? So you guys told me just trust in God. The first job I applied for was with the Los Angeles County Public Defender's Office. They were hiring. I had been this proofreader at this law firm reading an article in the LA Times, and there was a profile on some public defenders talking about how they work for people just like us. People who are troubled. People who are down on their luck. People who don't have the money to hire their own. And I thought, that sounds like what I'm supposed to be doing. So when I called them up and they said they were interviewing, I sent in a resume and I showed up for an interview, and there were these 5 lawyers sitting around a table just asking me all these questions and stuff. And then I'm answering the questions, and I think I'm doing pretty good. And we get near the end of the interview, and nobody had asked me about the resume. And this smart-ass lawyer at the end of the table said, "Mr. White, we noticed you haven't been working as a lawyer for the last 2 years. Why not?" I said, "Sir, I'm an alcoholic." I did not mean to say that. You guys have me trained now. I said, "Sir, I'm an alcoholic." I said, "I've been sober for the last 2 years." He said, "Mr. White, lawyers do a lot of drinking. Don't you think the stresses of this position might make you want to drink again?" I said, "Sir, it was stressful when I was out there." I said, "I think God has prepared me to do this job." And they looked at me. I don't think they hear the G word. And God, who is that? Is that a reference? They don't know. That's my best reference. So, "Okay, Mr. White, we'll contact you in 10 days. We'll let you know if we can hire you or if you're going to be put on our waiting list." And I went home not feeling particularly confident because of that last exchange. And I was, it was a Wednesday afternoon. I got home about 12 noon. And about 3 o'clock, they called me and said they wanted me in for another interview that Friday. And I said, shoot, probably that alcohol thing. Probably want me to pee in a bottle. But I've been sober for 2 years. I am willing. When I showed up that Friday, they had me see the head public defender of all Los Angeles County, a guy at the time named Wilbur Littlefield. Mr. Littlefield had me sit in this large office that he had located on the top of the criminal courts building in downtown Los Angeles. He had me sit on a couch, and he started just walking around talking about what public defenders do for about 15 to 20 minutes. And I was sitting on the couch fidgeting like one of those witnesses in Perry Mason, just waiting for him to ask me some questions, right? But Mr. Littlefield stopped talking, and he gave me this look, and he didn't ask me any questions about alcohol. He just walked over to the couch where I sat. And he held out his hand to me. He said, "Ron, we'd be proud to have you join our office." I like to remember the way that I felt when he said that. Didn't he know just 2 years before I was sleeping on my mother's floor, stealing the food out her refrigerator, watering the grass and taking out the trash for this youngster? What is that but a miracle? Alcoholics Anonymous takes broken up pieces of men and women, and working with the guidance of a loving God who works through the unselfish men and women who toil in this fellowship, we put the pieces back together again. It was as if each man and woman who sits in this room tonight, this afternoon, were standing in the lobby of the Harbor Light Center when I arrived there more dead than alive, with my chin on my chest, too ashamed to even look you in the face. And you guys walked up to me and you placed your hand underneath my chin and you lifted up my head. And even more than that, You wrapped your arms around me. As dirty and as filthy and as nasty as I was, you wrapped your arms around me and you literally loved me back to life. That's Alcoholics Anonymous. Alcoholics Anonymous is not about who's got the best looking suits, who's got the best pitch from the podium, who's got the most babies, who's got the biggest car in the parking lot or the biggest bank account. Alcoholics Anonymous is about gaining access to the power. The power that I've come to know that is so great, so good, so forgiving, so loving that it can do anything but fail. On February the 8th of 1991, I found myself standing in the delivery room of Kaiser Hospital in West Los Angeles with a pair of scissors in my hand, cutting the umbilical cord on my son, Ronald Jr. No ego. I may have had it backwards, but 3 months later, on May the 8th, and I heard Doug and them say they got married on May 7th. But on May the 8th, on my wife's birthday, we got married. I married the mother of my son. Now, I know that may not seem like a real big deal to anybody, but I need to let you know that when I was drinking, the only relationship I had with a woman was that I was a trick. And a woman actually wanted to share her life with me. This past May, we found ourselves in Jamaica celebrating our 20th wedding anniversary. When I married my wife, she had a 6-year-old daughter, Terrence. And some of you guys know what it's like to be that step-parent, that person who comes along with somebody who already has a small child. And I inserted myself into her mother's life, and it almost seemed like I was moving her out or taking her place. That's the way she felt, and I understand that. And I tried to buy her affection and woo her and went through all those stumbling blocks we do until finally I just started applying the principles that I learned in Alcoholics Anonymous in that relationship. When Terrence graduated from high school, she introduced me to all of her friends as her dad. You see, that's Alcoholics Anonymous. About 15 years ago, I found myself standing on the lawn of the White House in Washington, D.C., because I had been invited there by the President of the United States, because he heard about the work I was doing in my community as a public defender, and they wanted my input on a federal crime bill they were putting together. Standing on the lawn of the White House, hell, I was watering the lawn. That's Alcoholics Anonymous. I'll leave you with this. In November of 1987, on a Sunday morning, my mother stepped out of her bedroom getting ready to go to church. She was dressed in some beautiful church clothes, almost the same way that she was that morning when that guy Kenny tried to beat me to death. When she steps out of her bedroom, she steps in the doorway of her living room, and she just stops. She looks around the living room and she starts crying. She starts crying because there's a bunch of drunks sitting in her living room. And each one of the drunks that sat in her living room that morning were holding a copy of the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous in their hands. Because my brother and I, who had gotten sober in Alcoholics Anonymous, had been able to start a Big Book workshop in the same house where we tried to drink my mother to death. And the tears my mother cried that morning were tears of joy for what the program of Alcoholics Anonymous had done for her and her boys. That's Alcoholics Anonymous. Thank you for letting me share.